Hello, my name's Oliver, and as many of you know, I'm building my own car. And every single week in the comment section, there's usually 2 or 3 people that say, Oliver, I'd like to know more about this subject. I'd like to know more about suspension geometry. I'd like to know more about chassis design. I'd like to know more about aerodynamics. And they always ask, where can I go to learn this stuff? I've been promising to review a book on social media for quite a while, and it's this book. It is the Race and Rally Car Source Book, a DIY guide to building or modifying a race or rally car, updated edition by Allan Staniforth. This is where you start. Right? This is the best start that I could possibly recommend. Now, it's quite an old book. It's from the 1980s, but that means it's very low tech, which is what a lot of people like about my channel. He doesn't say if you want to learn about suspension, go learn CAD for 6 months and then start learning about suspension. He just gets on with it. And that's really nice. And he breaks it all down. And in this book, he covers suspension design. He covers chassis design. He covers aerodynamics. You know, it's really good. He even says, like, so you want to build a race car from scratch? Okay, do we do tubular or do we do monocoque? Here's the differences. Here's the advantages and disadvantages of both. Let's, you know, how do we set up a workshop? All these things are massively important. And he covers it all in an astoundingly small book. It's very digestible. And if you do sprint racing, you need to read this. If you do hill climbing, you need to read this. If you do time attack, you need to read this. If you just want to get the best out of your car and set your car up the best that you can, you need to read this book. It really is that good. Allan Staniforth is a bit of a legend in hill climbing. He built a little open wheel formula car called the Terrapin, which was a little tiny mid-engined, mini-powered like Formula 1 car. Sprint racing and hill climbing in the UK it's a bit like time attack, but it's up a hill or around a racing track from a standing start. And Allan Staniforth became a bit of a legend because he sold Terrapins, and his Terrapins did really, really well, and they became like the car to have for quite a while. And then even as the Terrapin design aged, people kept like buying Terrapins secondhand even after Allan had stopped making them, modifying them and making them faster and faster and faster. And Terrapins were so capable that people pulled out the mini engines and they started putting like forward BDA engines and stuff like that in. And Allan created this book to help as many people as possible make their own cars, which is one of the coolest things I can possibly think of. And for a book that's from the 1980s, it's astounding. Because this book constantly inspires me when I'm reading it. I constantly get ideas. He covers so much, including looking at like historically important racing cars and saying what they did right and what they did wrong and what the problems were with them and the development of them. And not just grassrootsy type racing cars like, you know, 750 club cars, but even goes up to like Formula 1. And everything in between. You know, he talks about Saabs, he talks about the original Mini and what was good about it. He talks about Ford Escorts and how they like triumphed in rallying and what was so good about them. And he breaks it all down, but he breaks it all down in a really easily digestible way. I'm very dyslexic, and I read very slowly, and I only read when I'm kind of processing a video after I've finished editing it. And so that's when I read this book. So it's taken me quite a while to get through it, but it is quite an easily digestible book because it's all broken down into sections, and there are also some really big pictures which are nice. There's a lot of big pictures, there's a lot of tables and diagrams to help you understand exactly what he's on about. And some of it gets very complicated because it is a complicated subject, but a lot of it's like quite easily understandable, and when he goes into the maths, he does it in a very approachable way so that, you know, even if you have to read it 3 times, you will understand it. And the diagrams are all very clear and nice, which is lovely. You know, I've read a lot of older books about racing and stuff, and there's a lot of photocopied like drawings that are really hard to read. There's none of that in this. This book is easier to read than even a Haynes manual. It's superb. It's, like I said, it's not the cheapest book in the world because this book is prized by collectors, but that's for a reason. It's that good. There are some bits which are a bit old-fashioned. All the units of measurement are all in imperial, which drove me slightly nuts. And what I used to do is to read this book with my phone on the unit converter for Google, because, you know, he talks about weights and stuff in obscure old British measurements and cubic feet and stuff like that. And if you're older, that might be nice for you. For me, it was very difficult, but it didn't stop me enjoying the book. And the tables in this book make it really good to compare different cars. And he actually lists different cars, and when he talks about like steering racks, for example, he gives you a frame of reference, and he's like, oh, this car that you know about has this sort of steering rack, this car has this sort of steering rack, and the ratios are why, and it's really, really interesting. And if you have an old kit car or something like that, that will come in super handy. And it's really written with normal enthusiasts in mind, which is great. And he talks about like trying to design different sorts of suspension system and trying to be pioneering from your own garage, which is really cool. You know, I think a lot of people doing stuff from home, trying to like play it safe, but there's a big history in grassroots racing of trying to try new stuff and do something different. He even covers a car that he made that used elastic as suspension, which is really cool. Which you might think, you know, if you have a Subaru Impreza, and he's talking about a 350 kilo car being a bit heavy, and he's talking about elastic suspension, you might be sitting there with your 1,400 kilo Impreza being like, what has this got to do with me? But the reality is that the same forces that act on your car act on that car, and there might be something that you can learn from it, even if it's just from his mentality and the way that he goes through things and his thought processes. You know, as people who are into motorsport and as people who are into car design, we often are trying to think of the thing that we've never thought of. And so different approaches and different thought processes, different mentalities can be really, really good. And there's not a single time I don't pick up this book that I'm not like drawn into it and that I'm not inspired by it in some way. And it really is an essential, especially like, if you're American, this is a very European perspective. It's a very different perspective from what you're used to. And if you're used to YouTube videos of people just throwing money at cars and trying to make them faster, that's not how Allan does. He's very analytical. He figures out the problems, and it's about making your car the best it can be for the least amount of money, which I know will appeal to all of you. Every single one of you who's a club racer, everyone who just, you know, goes and does a little bit of autocross on a weekend, or goes and does a track day, anyone who just wants to get that little bit more out of their car, that's Allan's mentality, and it's all about doing it for as cheap as possible. He talks about how to make your own brake bias adjuster. He talks about how to make your own aerodynamic devices. He talks about looking at problems and figuring it out and finding solutions, and he gives you the tools that you need to know to find those solutions. This book will save you time. It will save you a lot of money if you apply the knowledge it teaches you correctly, and it will make your car faster and better to drive. And there's just like nothing better than that. This book inspires me to build my car, and it has helped me to build my car. And it also, because of some of the write-ups and histories of some of the cars that are in this book, it makes me want to build another car. Now, if I could make a video that would inspire you in any way to, in your builds at home or in working on your car, and make you want to build another car, then I would say that I've made possibly the best video that I've ever made, because that's my goal for my YouTube channel. That's what I want to do. I want to inspire people to get, you know, to get the spanners out and do something awesome. And that's what this book does. And so I cannot recommend this highly enough. It's superb. I'll leave the ISBN number in the description below so that you can look it up online for yourself. And of course, on your way down, don't forget to click like and subscribe, because it really helps this channel grow. And if you enjoyed this video, then I hope you'll enjoy some of the playlists which are now appearing on screen. And of course, you can click my face to subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. Please be awesome to each other, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye bye.